We're about to start. We're going to let everybody in. Good evening, everybody. We are just getting ready for Purim. I know it's 24 hours away, but I was just looking at some of the stuff we've got going for Purim, and it is mind-blowing. It is gonna melt in people's minds.
Rabbi, I studied the Megillah with Rabbi Felsen from Palo Alto.
Yeah.
We read the whole thing. I was shocked. I did not ever know the ending.
Well, one day, we've done it before in class years ago because we did the whole Bible, but I did it with the kids today, the Zion level kids, and I love doing it with the kids. They're teenagers, so we start teaching them a little bit more of the story, and I like blowing their minds a little bit because I don't teach them believe me, I don't like getting to the eunuch parts. When we talk about eunuchs, I mean, oh my gosh, how do I even introduce that, right? But it's part of the story. And so we're reading the story and I love teaching it to the kids when I can start showing them the way the real story ends. Cause I always take them to the end and I say, how does the story of Purim end? Right. And they all say, oh, well, they hang Haman and it's all good. I go, well, that's not quite the way the story ends. The Jews actually fight back against anyone who attacks them. There's thousands of people who profess that they're Jews, and the Jewish people end up killing 75,000 people.
No.
75,000 people.
Whoa, it's incredible.
I'm like, they don't tell, that's not the part of the story that we teach kids, obviously. And there's a reason. I mean, that is scary. It's frightening. It's fairly bloody. And it blows people's minds when we get to that story and we actually look at the way the story actually plays out. So, I do like teaching it and I do like reading it, especially for people most people don't know the story. Even if they know the story, they don't really know the story. And what I like to tell people too about Purim, and I was thinking about, it would be kind of fun to study it tonight, but it actually takes quite a long time to read the story. It's only 10 chapters, right? And it's not, but it's a real.
We did it in an hour.
You see, I couldn't do that. I did it with the kids and I skipped over a lot. But it was hard. And we actually went a little longer. We went an hour and 15 minutes and we actually just finished 5:30. And I would love to study Purim in more in depth with people and
Do you know about Rabbi House's Adult Institute of, what does he call it? Adult Center of Jewish Studies.
No, I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I know he was doing it, but I don't know.
No, he's setting up a nonprofit and he's going to still continue with his class in Genesis and the judges now because we've finished Joshua. But he's going to have three mini series on, I think, Purim. I've got it written down. Open to everybody. But it's going to be conflict with you on Wednesday nights.
Well, listen, well, that's not good, but I'm glad they're doing studying there. It's obviously, it's important to have regular classes. It's something that I believe in. I mean, if a synagogue is not doing regular classes, I'm not really sure what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing, but there's definitely challenges for synagogues. I've mentioned it over the last few weeks and now we're up on Facebook now. So we had a problem yesterday. I realized that they've made it a little different to post up on Facebook. So Midrash was not on Facebook, but we are now up on Facebook.
Rabbi, what's with the hat?
It's hat day today. It's a bad hair. It's a bad hair day. I'm getting in the mood for Purim, Mike. Let's leave it at that. I'm leaving it Purim. I mean, I'm having lots of bad hair days now. That's what happens.
You could have put a Dodger hat on.
What happens when you start losing the hair? So I will be wearing hats probably more and more. I like wearing hats though.
Torah. I
like
love
wearing
it.
hats.
It's
I like wearing hats.
Like Lee wore.
This is a Lee type hat. Yeah, for sure. For sure. But no, I think baseball hats are a little too casual. We're going to talk
Lee
about
wore it much better.
Of course he did. Of course he did. He had much more this style in class. Definitely. But I will tell you, it's actually
way to go, Mike.
It is today's topic about dressing, about how to dress. So I thought it was especially inappropriate not to wear a casual hat today. Because it's exactly what the topic of today's class is about, how to wear and what to wear when well, at least when you were a priest. But I thought about it because kind of what you think about when you read this week's Torah portion. What about clothes? It's one of the portions that really deals with garments and
Rabbi, do you have photos of what the breastplate might have looked like? And
it's funny you should say that, because that's all queued up and ready.
great, yeah, because I'm reading it this afternoon. It's like, wow, I've read it before, obviously, but I mean, because there's a shoulder plate and the breastplate.
I will get to it, but since I want to prove to you that I had it all ready to
I believe you.
All ready to be queued up.
Oh, you showed this before. I remember seeing that before. Yeah.
There it is. But we'll get there soon, actually.
Sure.
But it is very much in our minds in this week's portion, Tetzaveh. But I do, like I said, I do want to also remind people that Purim is coming up. I posted up a little teaser of what Purim's going to look like. What Purim's going to look like for us. It is, it's hard to believe that that Purim is now upon us, because again, I know it's it was not quite 12 months ago, but it was the last event, as we talked about last week, that we did before we went into lockdown. And so it's weird to think about what memories you have of a year ago, but that is one of my memories. We did Purim, and we did the Purim Carnival. I went to Aipac, and then everything went nuts. And turned out
that's why you were at Aipac already.
It turned out that people were getting sick at Aipac, which was weird because it was in the background. We knew it was happening in China at that point, but we really were kind of naive to think that it wasn't going to affect us. And Purim is a time when we're supposed to celebrate. What was really, really hard in the Orthodox world, and one of the reasons why it spread so fast in the Orthodox world, is because everybody had Purim events, and big ones with lots of alcohol and lots of partying, that people did get sick very quickly within the Orthodox world. And by March, a lot of people had already been sick, and it really kind of, in a way, went through that community early, and it did make its way through Aipac fairly early too. And there were people who did get sick, and it was definitely an event.
Are they doing anything online for Aipac this year? Or
they are, but not what I would have thought they were going to do. Obviously they canceled the policy conference a while ago, and it's a big event. Obviously, thousands of people come to Washington, and I've told people before, I'd love for you to join me at that, because it's one of the great Jewish events, I think, of the year. But they are going to be doing some stuff. We're going to be doing some lobbying. I'll let people know if it's something that we can do together. We're supposed to, we don't have a date, a fixed date yet, but from March 15th to the 18th, and I wasn't planning on talking about it, but since you guys mentioned it, and it's definitely opportune to talk about, the Aipac lobbying sessions will be the 15th through the 18th. We don't know the date yet of when our session will be, but it will be one of those days. Will be our time to talk with our congressman
Garcia.
Yeah, and we'll be talking to him. And I just looked, in the middle of that is Scott Wilkes' birthday. So Scott had a really nice article about him in the LA Times, and he's now the leadership of the Senate, the Republican leadership of the Senate. And it was a very nice article about Scott. But that is interesting to think about what AIPAC will look like that week of the 15th through the 18th. And I will promise I will let people know what events are open and people can get involved. And who knows, maybe we'll have more people participate because it's virtual. We'll see. But I promise to let people know that it'll be sometime the week of the 15th through the 18th. It's also St. Patrick's Day. I don't know what that means, but usually as
time to get drunk.
Wednesday.
As we were talking about, usually it's right around the time of Purim, the the Aipac thing, which is interesting because it is kind of the message of Purim about lobbying the king, and that's what Esther does. She lobbies the king and uses her power. Mordecai uses his connections to help save the Jewish people. It is ironic, of course, that the events take place in Persia, in Iran, which is definitely our number one concern on the global stage today. And again, it's kind of ironic, and the Jewish community that lives in Iran right now is very in a very precarious position. But listen, they don't want to leave because they've been there for 2,500 years.
And how many Jews do live in Iran, though?
So right now, I think the population is about 30 to 40,000.
That many?
It is at one point.
That surprises me.
In the late 70s, before the takeover, the Islamic Republic takeover, it was about 80,000, I believe. And again, many came to America. Many came to right here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has a huge
Yes.
Persian community. I mean, enormous. One of the largest communities. Obviously, Israel has many. Israel has 200 to 250,000, and the U.S. has about 70, 80,000. And I would guess probably 60-70% of the community lives in L.A. And then there's also a pretty large Persian community that's in Long Island, in the North Shore area around Manhasset, that kind of area around there. It's a pretty large Persian Jewish community there. And again, that New York Persian community is
When you say Persian, you mean Persian Jews, correct?
Persian Jews. That Persian Jewish community is pretty substantial. And yeah, let me see. Right now there are there's only about 10,000 Jews in Iran right now.
That's still high, but
It's gone down a lot. It's still, by the way, one of the
Beverly Hills. No.
It's a scary situation for some of them. A lot of them.
Yeah, how are they? I'm sure they're not treated well there, right?
They are constantly under watch. They are allocated a seat in the parliament, so there's always one.
Oh, they are.
There's always one Jew who gets to be a member of parliament, and it's a tough situation. They have to kind of officially be anti-Israel because the community can't be too pro-Israel. And of course, they've lost a lot of their wealth, and a lot of their businesses, got taken away. So it's very hard on the community there. They have to be very low key, and it used to be much larger. So well, here it says, by the way, I'm looking right here. One Jewish MP in Iran said that there's still 60 to 85,000 Jews that are living in secret. So it could be that it is higher. I knew that there was a higher estimate, but the official estimates, if you will, are that. But at the time of the Islamic Revolution, right here, it says 80 to 100,000 Jews were living in Iran, and as many as 20,000 left just within months of that. So, and then most left after.
Well, the Shah wasn't horrible on the Jews.
No, the Shah had a great relationship with Jews, had a great relationship with Israel, and actually his son just recently, like last week, I think, came out and said that Israel is a natural ally, and the Jewish people are natural allies of the Iranian people. So, unfortunately, he doesn't have any power.
Where is he? Is he in Iran?
No, are you kidding?
Oh, I didn't think so.
He lives in I think he lives in America some of the time, and I think he has a home in Europe too. But he's the crown prince of Iran. And what's interesting is that here it is right here. It was February 14th, so about 10 days ago. He said when the Ayatollahs fall, the natural relationship will be renewed. A biblical relationship between Iranians and Israelis. So he said in an exclusive interview that he said that the Ayatollahs are blackmailing the free world with the Iran deal, and they shouldn't get any money. And he said As for Israel, which had full diplomatic relations under his father, the Shah, Pahlavi emphasized that the Iranian people are in full desire of peace with Israel. And he said that he does not want to go back to rule, but he does want the country to be free again. And he said, I would love to visit Israel and meet with its citizens. So as I mentioned before, because Israel has such a large Persian Jewish community, as I said, 200 to 250,000 Jews from originally from Iran live in Israel today. It's very helpful for Israel because Israel monitors what goes on in Iran on a daily basis. And because they have so many Persian Farsi speakers, they have round the clock, intelligence gathering that's going on as Israel monitors what's going on there. So having that whole community essentially, in Israel has allowed Israel to have a huge intelligence, essentially superiority. On the contrary, there aren't many people that speak Hebrew fluently that live in Iran. It doesn't go both ways. That doesn't mean there aren't some, and there are some some Jews that have cooperated with the Iranian government. But again, there aren't many, and it's not like in the thousands. Israel literally has a whole cadre of intelligence operatives that speak Farsi, and of course, they've pulled off some amazing intelligence gathering, and as we saw a couple months ago, literally assassinating the head of the nuclear program in Iran. Which
and before that, they infected the Iranian machines that were refining uranium.
The Stuxnet virus.
Stuxnet, yeah.
So yes, they've been able to do
that, and I'm proud of them.
And again, it's largely because they have this huge Persian Jewish community living in Israel. By the way, as I mentioned, there's actually a show about that on Apple TV called Tehran, and I saw they've done one season, very watchable and I think a pretty good, pretty dramatic and exciting spy series called Tehran, exactly about this issue. So that's a little Purim stuff. I do want to get to, and it's okay because we do have the Torah portion this week, as I said, Tetzaveh, which is actually not very long. So the fact that we've spent a little time talking about Iran and Persian Jews is not a bad thing, because as we get ready for Purim, it would be great, like I said, to study the whole book of Esther today. But it really requires, I think, if we were going to study Esther, it requires 2 or 3 weeks of, and we've done it before, so I know this isn't theoretical. It takes a few 2-hour sessions to get through it. It takes about, a couple hours to read about three or four.
I think it took 3. If I remember correctly, it took about 3.
Yep.
3 classes.
It does. And now that we've studied the Midrash on Esther too, it's fascinating, and people are a little more familiar with the Midrash on it. And it really does. There really is some amazing lessons in that. As I told the kids today, and I'll say one more word about Purim, it is the least factual book of the Bible, in the sense that there are least amount of things that we can corroborate, aside from Ahasuerus Xerxes being a real king of Persia. There's nothing else that we can corroborate in that story. Not that he ever married a woman named Esther, not that he was ever married to a woman named Vashti. Factually, there's very little we can establish from that story. And I would argue, and I mean, I'm not arguing it, many people have argued it, that the book was never intended to be read literally, that it was meant to be a farce. It was meant to be a spoof.
A story.
Yep, an allegory, a tale. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why, and we've mentioned this before, it's really the only story in the Bible that doesn't have God's name mentioned. God's name is not mentioned once. And it was interesting because one of the kids today said, that's one of the things that some people would say makes it the most believable book of the Bible, is because God doesn't do any miracles in it, or at least overt miracles. And I said, well, it's interesting you say that, because in reality, we have more historical, information about other stuff. So I said, even though the story is the least factual, maybe in the Bible, and maybe that's why God's name isn't mentioned, so that people wouldn't say, well, this is a joke story. You can't have God's name in a joke story. It's a joke story. And so that is a possibility of why God's name isn't mentioned, because it's not meant to be taken literally. And so they didn't want it taken literally that way. But there is something amazing about the story that I tell the kids. I said, even though it's the least factual, maybe, and maybe never intended to be read as fact, it is one of the most truthful stories in the Bible because it is so relevant. It is so unfortunately repeated in Jewish history, where the Jews were in a precarious situation, and that one person, and I said one of the key lines in the story is when Mordecai communicates in his messages back to Esther, who knows, maybe it was for this exact moment that you were put in this place. And there are so many times that a Jewish person who was at the right place at the right time was able to advocate and save the Jewish people, that unfortunately we've been in that situation so many times, that the story is so truthful and so real because it's happened so many times. And it really is amazing to think of the people who have had that position of power at the right moment to do the right thing. And again, one of the most famous was Eddie Jacobson, who was Harry Truman's friend, who was able to meet with him as a colleague, as a friend, as a business partner, and say, you have to help Israel. And Truman supposedly said, look, everyone in the State Department is telling me not to. And Jacobson said, look, I'm begging you, for me to help our people not have another Holocaust. And again, there's a lot of people who say that little relationship ended up being crucial for the United States initially backing Israel. And so those kinds of people, that one's documented because it only happened 73 years ago. But there are other stories of Jews at critical moments in history, who were able to lobby and were able to put in a good word at the right moment and save a lot of people. So it's a very, very true story. It may not be factual, but it's absurdly and ridiculously true. So with that, we're going to turn to the Torah, which is very interesting this week in that it deals with details that you may find to be a very interesting description of clothing, of garments, of what the priests wear. And even more so, as we're going to see, this is the first time that we're told that the priests are going to be priests. So up until this time, we kind of know that Aaron is important. We know that he's Moses's brother and works with Moses to help get the people out of Egypt. That Aaron's really right there from the beginning. From the moment that Moses comes back to Egypt, he's got Aaron right by his side. Oh, you know what? Let me just do one thing. I want to make sure that this doesn't, I want to make sure we've got we're not going to have any problems with the screen sharing today. So
did you restart your computer tonight?
I did. I actually restarted it 2 times. So I restarted it in the morning, and then I restarted it later. So I'm hoping that'll do the trick. Anyways, so let us take a look, and hold it 1 second. So the Torah portion begins with this really, really wonderful description of the lamps, the menorahs. And it kind of starts, as we just read last week in Truma, with all the utensils that were that you're going to make. And now we have the description of those descriptions. So last week we read about the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. We read about the ark and some of the things that go into it. But now we really drill down and get to the smaller items. And we start here with, you shall command or instruct, which is the second word, ve'ata tetzaveh, you shall command, which is where the word mitzvah, same root, command, or again, the instructions. You shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly, the ner tamid, which is the word where we get the phrase the ner tamid, the light that is in our synagogues and sanctuaries is a ner tamid, which they translate as regularly. Oftentimes it's translated as constantly or always. Tamid meaning always lit. A little different than regularly. Regularly implies sometimes it's out, sometimes it's on. Ner tamid implies it's always on, at least the way we understand it today.
Mm-hmm.
little different between regular and constantly. I would bet that if you have the King James open there next to you, Schwartz's, you may see a different word than regular. Anyways, but that's where the word ner tamid comes from. So we have that introduced here. Aaron and his sons shall set them up in the tent of meeting outside the curtain, which is over the Ark of the Pact or the Ark of the Covenant, to burn from evening till morning before the Lord. It shall be a due from the Israelites for all time throughout the ages. So that's the introduction to the menorah, which again seems to be part of that. Now, again, the Christian division of having that with the previous line kind of makes sense, because you only have you have two verses and then you go into another chapter. The chapter actually begins maybe at a more natural break, which is now the break of, now bring Aaron and his family forward. You shall bring forward your brother Aaron with his sons from among the Israelites to serve me as priests. Aaron, Aharon, Nadav and Avihu, Eleazar and Itamar. These are his sons of Aaron. And it says, make sacral vestments for your brother Aaron for dignity and adornment. So it says lechavod for dignity, for honor, but also ultifaret, or again, tiferet or tifaret is to adorn, to make beautiful. So it's not just for honor, it's also for beauty. And it has dual purposes. We oftentimes think of clothes that are
Somebody froze in a very funny position.
Oh,
His restarting didn't help. Oh my God.
You got frozen, Mark.
Look, yeah, I'm sure he knows, but it's like when you take a bad picture.
Yes, and then it stays forever.
Whoops. Whoops.
I needed a good laugh.
Maybe if I switch hats, then he'll come back.
No,
How about that?
there he goes. Oh,
Well, you have a fedora too, David.
I did it to support the rabbi.
Of course.
maybe I should go get a hat on.
Absolutely. Go, Diane.
I only have one hat. Let me get it.
She's going in. Well, hopefully the rabbi will come back. Yeah.
You know, it was interesting how the rabbi said at times there's one person that makes a very big difference. When Eisenhower went through Germany, he was the one that says, take pictures,
Yes.
document this. People will not believe what we have seen.
Right.
Make sure that we have all the records of the things that the Nazis did, because if it's not well documented, they will pretend like it never happened.
Right.
And he was a very important person, a single person who made a difference to this day.
Yeah.
And there are still Holocaust deniers, just like there are people that don't believe the Capitol insurrection happened.
That's right.
Go figure. It's crazy.
So insightful that he said that at that time.
Yes. And he must know history. I guess going through military training, they get a lot of information on history. And he used his knowledge of history to know that if something happens that's almost unbelievable, you must have documents, pictures, because people don't want to believe it.
Yeah. If you don't have a photograph and to prove it, it didn't happen. Right.
Didn't happen. Who are you trying to fool?
We're
Yeah.
lucky we had photography. Otherwise, before, would we have written records, or before
Right.
that into stone? I mean, you know,
Yes, but people sometimes discount written records because it could have been written by anybody.
Right.
Because even historians now distort some of what's going on because of their prejudice one way or another. So historians are not always reliable, but pictures, accurate depictions, usually it's harder to deny it happened.
right.
Right.
Oh my goodness, where is he?
Working, trying to get it back. This stuff isn't easy. I've been having trouble with my phone off and on this last week. Sometimes I'll get a video and I'll press on that little arrow and it'll have sound and action. Sometimes no sound. And I don't know the difference when I can get sound and when I can't. And I've been struggling. It's hard to struggle with today's stuff.
Technology.
It's very difficult for me at times.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know? I also struggle with today's technology.
Well, that's what we were explaining.
So,
And
no,
you've had a lot of severe winds. You've got windy days today and tomorrow. Yeah.
this is a computer issue with me because I don't have this problem when I'm not on my, and I don't think it's an internet issue. I think it's literally a computer issue because, you know, it's funny when I told you, Mike, that I restarted my computer twice. The one thing that I did right before I came on, and it was because I told you I was fixing some stuff for Purim. I did have to cut down a little video, which does use a lot of memory. I did do one thing that I probably shouldn't have because I wanted to create this little video clip that I posted just before to say we have 24 hours for Purim. So it might have been me. I shouldn't
You might have sabotaged yourself.
I shouldn't have that problem. I shouldn't have the problem that but I did do something before that did require a lot of memory. Anyways, I apologize again because it is very frustrating when I upgraded my internet and everything else. But by the way, I was on a call Monday night, and everybody who was on, I think I said this yesterday, everybody who was on Charter, I have Charter at home, and I was not at home Monday night. And so I was on the call and everybody who was on Charter disappeared at once. And everybody who had AT&T and every other stuff, they were okay. It was really weird. So
Yes, Spectrum was out. Spectrum.
Yeah,
That's
Spectrum, Charter Spectrum went out. It was just went out across the board, and it was so weird that everybody dropped off. I thought everyone got raptured at the same time, but anyway, it was very strange. Anyways, so we're just getting to the part where, again, they call up Aaron and his sons, and tells them that they're going to have special clothes. And it said, as I said, for dignity and adornment. And this interesting thing I was going to say about this was that, you know, we think about clothes that have dignity, that carry honor. And I think one of the main ones is like a military uniform. You know, military uniforms are really created to create a sense of respect and awe, you know, and like, you know, we get that from an early day, you know, also maybe, you know, for, you know, people who are first responders, you know, police officers and people who work for the fire department, those uniforms carry a certain kind of dignity with them. But we don't usually think of them as adornment unless they're like
the medals are an adornment when they're
exactly
medals. They look adorned and they look very impressive.
Yep. And so that is probably the example of when military, you know, especially officers are wearing kind of their formal attire and dress attire, then you start to see the adornment. But very rarely do uniforms that carry dignity also have this sense of adornment, because there's this very fine line between, oh, that's a fancy outfit, and something that carries the dignity. It's a very, very difficult thing to convey in the same in the same uniform. And you can think of some of those military uniforms that you may have seen over the years, you know, some of those like weird French uniforms or uniforms from like the Pirates of Penzance, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the craziest uniform. That doesn't look like a dignified uniform. That looks like some kind of crazy dress up thing. So there's a fine line with the adornment and dignity. And the interesting thing is the priestly garments were supposed to have both. They were supposed to be beautiful, but they were also supposed to carry this kind of dignity with them. And definitely a hard thing, by the way. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this anymore, but it's definitely a hard thing for a man to pull off, by the way. But for a man to have something that looks, that's adornment. And again, I think Joyce used a good example of something where people have metal, those beautiful, metals, and can't think of the other fancy word for epaulets. You know, they get those things. Those are the kind of the exception to the rule. But yeah, guys oftentimes have to pick one or the other, and usually they pick ones that have dignity to them.
Well, the Pope has both. He's very adorned.
And so that is really, again, because the popes are trying to wear these kinds of same sacral vestments. The sacral vestments that the popes wear and some of the cardinals are recreations of these things. And so that is one of the important things that, again, the Catholic Church tried to do when it started its, kind of having their clergy wear certain types of robes, is they based it on their reading of the Torah. And so there were lots of priestly sacral vestments that were based on this. And again, today, I've talked to some Catholic clergy, there's definitely been a attempt to kind of go to a more casual look. And obviously the
tone it down a little bit, tone it down.
Yeah. And not to be as colorful, but the current Pope, because he was a Franciscan, Saint Francis, going off of, this current Francis, going off of Saint Francis, to use Franciscan garments were kind of the opposite of what the fancy clerical garments were. So again, some of it, when you see what the priests and especially the popes were wearing, you'd go, that doesn't quite look, that doesn't quite look like what the high priest would have worn. But again, there are other elements, and again, especially when you look at some of the Eastern Orthodox vestments, priestly vestments that are even more, to some extent, closely related to the priests. But again, those are attempts at recreating these sacral vestments. So it says, "You shall instruct all who are skillful, whom I have endowed with the gift of skill, to make Aaron's vestments for consecrating him to serve me as priests." So again, I'm going to actually give artists the ability to have these visions of how to make these things. These are the vestments that they are to make: a breastpiece and an ephod, a robe, a fringed tunic, a headdress, and a sash. They shall make those sacral vestments for your brother and for his sons for priestly service to me. So again, I will show you what they're talking about with the ephod and well, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'll show you again the kind of overall look of what a priest would look like, all decked out. Look, it's hard for us to know for sure, because some of the things we really don't know. Like, we really don't know what some of these things look like, because we didn't have pictures. We didn't have even drawings of it, but it's also difficult because we're not even sure how some of the words can even be translated, especially what you see the word here, the second word in ephod, which is just the Hebrew word. So we don't even translate it, because again, we're not really sure what the ephod looks like, because it definitely is some kind of item that seems to be carried, but it also is attached to the garments. And so because of that, it's kind of a question of like, what did it look like? What did the ephod look like? The other things, the priestly, the breastplate, a sash. I mean, we can kind of imagine based on those descriptions or what the other Hebrew words are, what they look like, but not ephod, which is why the ephod is usually not translated. It's usually, again, this kind of, well, let's just use the Hebrew word because we know, we know what, kind of what it looks like. So I'll show you one picture of what the priests look like with everything on. Oh, except for right here, it doesn't say anything about the turban. So let's read a little bit more and we'll get to it. It was, again, I mean, some of it, pretty much the ephod is the hardest thing for us to know. They therefore shall receive the gold, the purple, the blue, the purple, the crimson yarns, and the fine linen. They shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and of fine twisted linen, worked into designs. It shall have 2 shoulder pieces attached. They shall be attached at its 2 ends. And the decorated band that is upon it shall be made like it, of 1 piece, with it, of gold, of purple, of blue, purple, of crimson yarns, and of fine twisted linens. And again, those words in Hebrew are, besides zahav, which is gold, it's tehelet, va'argaman, v'tolad, and those are the blue, the purple, and the crimson. And again, we're pretty sure that those are, we're not exactly sure how blue the techeles was, but the techelet, but it's blue, purple, and red. And it says, take 2 lazuli or lazuli stones. And again, these are avnei shoham in Hebrew. That's what the word is in Hebrew, shoham. And engrave on them the names of the sons of Israel. 6 of their names on 1 stone, and the names of the remaining 6 on the other stone, and in order of their birth. On the 2 stones you shall make seal engravings, the work of lapidar, of the names of the sons of Israel, having them bordered with frames of gold. Attach the 2 stones to the shoulder piece of the ephod as stones for remembrance of the Israelite people. So this is on the ephod. These are the ephod. This is the design on the ephod. Then make frames of gold. And the 2 chains of pure gold, braid these like corded work, and fasten the corded chains to the frames. You shall make a breastplate. Okay, so that's the ephod. And so you know what? Let me just show you what the ephod looks like by itself, because we are going to get to the we are going to go to the breastplate next, but let's look at the ephod. So I'm trying to find a picture of the ephod without the I tried to bring up one without the breastplate, but they usually put the breastplate on the over the ephod. So I'm going to.
I found it on my phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to show this one right now because this one's actually probably closer.
Looks like an apron.
Yeah, and so this one I'm showing right now. Hold it a second. It's not showing yet. Okay, so
That's beautiful.
so this is close to what it is, but they put the Choshen Mishpat over it. They put it over it. And the ephod clearly is
Like a tunic.
Yeah, or an apron, like you said. It is a it's not really clear like what was needed, why this was needed in addition to the breastplate, which is why most people kind of show it with the breastplate, because the breastplate seems to be like, it seems to make more sense to people. And well, we actually have a word for it in English. They call it the breastpiece, but the breastplate is the way it's oftentimes translated. Breastplates, by the way, usually, if you think about it, usually are describing the breastplate of armor.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the breastplate, the way it's described by the stones, and we're going to read it right now. So again, the breastplate was over the ephod. And so everyone sees the breastplate right now up there.
Yes.
So, and this one, they actually put the names of the tribes because it says you shall make the breastplate of decision, which in Hebrew is the choshen, which is the breastplate. But mishpat is also seems to be part of this, which is choshen mishpat, the breastplate of decision or of judgment. And so somehow, again, it's not just a breastplate of design, but a breastplate that's used in decision and used in judgment. And we'll talk about that in a second. So it's not just a breastplate. The choshen mishpat is one phrase. So we usually just say the priestly breastplate, but it's not. It's actually the breastplate of decision, the choshen mishpat. So it says, it shall be square and doubled, a span in length and a span in width. So again, this is roughly like a foot, a foot on each direction. It's a square. It says, set in it mounted stones in 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a row of carnelian, chrysolite, and emerald. And there you have it across the way, starting from, again, the right to left, the way we read Hebrew. So there it is, goes across the way. The emerald being probably the most famous stone that you know there. I mean, you might know carnelian too, but the interesting thing, of course, here is that the Levites would have been the emerald stone, which again is the stone that obviously is still a very valuable and
Precious.
stone. So let's look at let's go back to look at the text just for a quick second so you can see the text. And it says the second row, a turquoise, a sapphire, and an amethyst. Okay. And then on the third row, it says a jacinth, an agate, and a crystal. And in the fourth row, a beryl, a lapis lazuli, or lazuli, and jasper. And they shall be framed with gold in their mounting. And again, the lapis stone is already been mentioned as part of the ephod. So this is a stone.
Already on the shoulders, isn't it?
Yep. And if you think about it, it's usually not even like adequately put in those pictures. But lapis was already in it. But here you have the way that this would have looked
Beautiful.
in that drawing. And
well, there's one other thing. He's carrying the entire population of Israel right on his chest.
Yep.
All the tribes, right? Yep. And they're there. You cannot ignore any of it. Yep. You're responsible as a priest to all of them.
Yep. And again, they're represented by something precious, right? They're precious stones. They're precious. And again, according to tradition, the reason that this was called, and again, it says the stone shall correspond in number to the names of the sons of Israel. Now, again, it says the tribes, they shall be engraved like seals, each with its names for the 12 tribes. So it's very clear, it's explicit that, again, these are connected to the tribes. And it says on the breastplate, make braided chains of corded work in pure gold. Well, let me finish the description. Make 2 rings of gold on the breastpiece and fasten 2 rings at the 2 ends of the breastpiece, attaching the 2 golden cords to the 2 rings at the end of the breastpiece. Then fasten the 2 ends of the cords to the 2 frames, which you shall attach to the shoulder pieces of the ephod at the front. So, I mean, there it's pretty clear it's attached to the ephod. Make 2 rings of gold and attach them to the 2 ends of the breastpiece at its inner edge, which faces the ephod. And and make 2 other rings of gold and fasten them on the front of the ephod, low on the 2 shoulder pieces, close to its seam above the decorated band. The breastpiece shall be held in place by a cord of blue from its rings to the rings of the ephod. So the breastpiece rests on the decorated band and does not come loose from the ephod. And again, that's why when you see that in those diagrams, the ephod and the breastpiece, are oftentimes kind of, look like they're attached and they're seen as connected. And again, I'm not sure, I'm not sure that this is necessarily the best, it's hard for us to, imagine what this looks like, but at least it's got the stones up at the top. At least it's got, and again, a lot of the drawings I see of the ephod don't have the stones. And it also has, again, the stones as they, would have been on the rows on, I'm not really sure that the order of the colors of this is correct. No, it isn't. So I'm not really, they actually reversed it. They did it backwards. Well, I mean, look, I say they did it backwards because we assume that they did it in the Hebrew direction, which is logical, that when it says you start in this color and then this color and then this color, that it would have gone in that direction. I mean, we assume that. I mean, one would naturally assume, but the breastplate is we call it the Choshen Mishpat. We call it the breastplate of decision because, again, according to tradition, when one of the tribes was in trouble or had done something wrong, that stone would light up. That God's power, would kind of be communicated, or God's information would be communicated to the priests by those breastplates, by those stones, right? And that those would light up based on what was going on with the tribe.
Like a computer.
Yeah.
Signal.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is why it's called a breastplate of decision. It's not just called the breastpiece or the breastplate. It's called the breastplate of decision. And again, as I like to show people, we have a breastplate in our ark on one of the Torahs, which has the names of the tribes. And that's a very common artistic motif for a breastplate. A Torah breastplate is to do that, to either put stones or to put representations of the different tribes on the breastplate to remind ourselves of this piece. It's definitely of the things that the priest had for various reasons. The other one being we really don't understand what the ephod's purpose was, other than it seems to be connected to the breastplate. It's one of the few things that really is kind of dramatic and very beautiful, and again seems to have a mystical power with it. And so it's always like a focal point. I mean, I even remember in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they put the guy dressed as the priest, the archaeologist, the bad guy, put on the breastplate, and it was lighting up, and it was part of the dramatic, costume that he wore. He also had the turban on, which we'll get to, but these things were all important, but the breastplate is the one we kind of focus on. And it's the one that we interestingly still recreate. And it's the one that when we're trying to preserve some of these things, we preserve that. We preserve a breastplate. So it says the breastpiece shall be held again, so that the breastpiece rests on the decorated band and does not come loose from the ephod. And it says, Aaron shall carry the names of the sons of Israel on the breastpiece of his decision over his heart when he enters the sanctuary for remembrance before the Lord at all times. And again, it's exactly as Joyce had said, he's carrying the tribes with him. And he is representing them every time he comes in the sanctuary. Now,
Do we have anything like that today?
other than the breastplate on the Torah,
That's
as I was
what
saying,
yeah.
I can't think of anything else we have like that.
No.
And here we get to the really tough one, which we also, maybe even more than the ephod, don't know what to do with these.
Worm and true.
Yes. And inside the breastpiece of decision you shall place the Urim and Tumim, which again, not translated.
Hmm.
Well, let's read what they are. So that they are over Aaron's heart when he comes before the Lord. Thus Aaron shall carry the instrument of decision for the Israelites over his heart before the Lord at all times. So we don't know exactly what these things look like. Now, I will show you what we sometimes think they look like. Well, I shouldn't say what we think they look like, because the two letters, and this is what I was going to kind of show you, was the two letters are the two letters that make up the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and the last letter of the alphabet, Aleph and Taf. So the words Urim and Tumim are both words that carry with them the Hebrew letters. So this is what biblical Alephs and Tafs look like, which is why they don't look like an Aleph and Taf. But that's what they look like, Aleph and Taf. So, as the Greeks would later on say, Alpha to the Omega, which is the way they describe Jesus as the Alpha and the Omega. But the reality is that we don't know exactly what these things look like, and did they have all the Hebrew letters and just maybe those are the those are the representations of the letters, the Aleph and Taf. Did they have other words or other letters there too? But that's the first letter and last letter. So it's like we still say from A to Z, it's got everything from A to Z. Whether other letters were also there. Were they kind of like decahedron dice that had all the letters, like half the letters on one dice and half the letters on the other dice? We don't know. A lot of possibilities. The words for Urim and Tumim, the root of those words, or is light, right? And that is the root of, or is the root of Urim. The other word Tumim, from the word Tam in Hebrew, means pure, true, or without, without blemish, without defect, is something Tam. So this is also means simple. So we say this, the simple son, but is Tam. But it is there are both really nice words to describe the way we're supposed to live, in light and in
Truth.
which is why, as I just posted up, you can see this is the coat of arms of Yale University. Everybody sees it up there, Urim and Tumim, in Hebrew. And because Yale was founded as an institution that required all of its students initially to learn Hebrew, it wouldn't have been strange for it to have Hebrew on its coat of arms, which it still does. So the words Urim and Tumim, which they translate here in the Latin as light and truth in Latin, which is kind of a light, kind of a weak translation of the word Tumim, but it's okay. The idea of the students being committed to light and truth was so important that, again, Yale University put it on its coat of arms. So there's the Urim and Tumim. That's where we get it. That's one of the ways we see it today, but we really don't know what they look like. And we really are kind of at a loss to how we would even depict them, like the ephod. And I would say probably even less, because we have less information about what they look like. So we don't really know. And again, we know that they are somehow inside of or connected to the Choshen Mishpat, to the breastplate. And then it goes back to the ephod. You shall make the robe of the ephod of pure blue. The opening for the head shall be in the middle of it. The opening shall have a binding of woven work about it, and it shall be like the opening of a coat of mail, so that it does not tear. On its hem, make pomegranates of blue, purple, and crimson yarns all around the hem, with bells of gold between them all around. So, interestingly, we oftentimes forget that the priestly garments contained bells, which meant that you wouldn't have just seen the robes, you would have heard them. And again, we sometimes forget it because, again, we it's so different from what priests would wear today that we don't, we really don't know how to depict it, but it should be depicted. Whenever you see the priestly garments depicted, they should have bells. And so you can see in this garment that they actually put it down there, that they put up the garments with the bells. And you can see the ephod robe is the robe that goes underneath the ephod. And then so you have the robe underneath, the tunic underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the ephod robe, the ephod, and then the breastplate over that. So it really is like 3 layers of garments and then the breastplate on top. And again, the ephod robe has pomegranate work and bells on it. So this is kind of a cool, design.
Good
Definitely
costume for Purim.
what? Yes, for the Purim costume that I think would blow people's minds if people said, "What the heck are you wearing now?" And I'd say, "Well, this is based on the description in the Torah, folks." But again,
It's what you should be wearing.
blue, purple, and red.
Yeah.
And again, it's pretty colorful. I mean, it's pretty it's pretty
And dramatic and beautiful.
very dramatic. Yeah, very dramatic. So again, it's colorful, which you could definitely say is, and it's adorned, but it also is still, again, how we imagine this would look probably has a little bit to do with our sense of style, but it's also supposed to convey dignity. So, that also, I guess, has to go into the way we kind of imagine this. It says that it says a golden bell and a pomegranate all around the hem of the robe. So it was alternating bells and pomegranates on the bottom. So pomegranates, rimonim, we still use those. Again, around the Torah, we oftentimes put silver pomegranate designs on the pieces that we put on the Torah, as Torah crowns. So we put them usually on the Eitzei Chaim. Sometimes we put a crown over it, and sometimes we put pomegranates made of silver. And oftentimes those pomegranates also have bells. And so the reason that we put the bells on those pieces are also to remind us of these bells and pomegranates that were on the priestly garments. In this case, again, the ephod robe. And so it says specifically, Aaron shall wear it while officiating, so that the sound of it is heard when he comes into the sanctuary before the Lord, and when he goes out, that he may not die. Now, what's interesting about that is the bells then seem to indicate that he's coming in, that he is going into the holy area. Because if he doesn't wear it when he enters into the holy space, then he'll die. Like he'll almost catch God off guard. So what's interesting about this is the bells seem to be alerting everybody, including God. It's a very weird thing, because it's not that anybody else will die, it's so that he won't die.
It's a strong reminder to him and the congregation how serious this is and how important. It raises the importance. Yep.
And so he really is kind of, I want to point out, it does say when he comes in and when he goes out. When he comes in and when he goes out. So it's important that when he goes in, but also when he goes out, which is also telling us that, he has to be in the right frame of mind when he goes in and out, that the bells are, for God, but also to some extent for him, because when he leaves, he's leaving the presence of God. And that is something that he needs to be cognizant of as he's doing it. And by extension, his descendants and the people that are going to follow him, including, as we know, his two sons, Nadav and Avihu, who actually die because of what they do and what they're not supposed to do, that get them in trouble. So it's very serious that the priests need to be in the right frame of mind when they are going in and when they're coming out. It says, you shall make a frontlet of pure gold and engrave on it, seal the inscription, holy to the Lord, Kodesh Ladonai, that this went on the headdress of the priest, which again, now we're going to get a little description of that. So it says, suspended on a cord of blue so that it may remain on the headdress. It shall remain on the front of the headdress, which again is a little bit like the tefillin that people wear today. It's on the forefront. It's in their front of their eyes, front of their head, or on their head, so that it's right there at the top. Like, people will know when they see the priest, he's carrying those words. So that's a pretty wild description of this thing we also forget, which is that he actually carried the words with him, on him, holy to the Lord.
It occurs to me there's another psychological thing going on here. It is going to all of the senses, the vision, the sound, the aura around him. It appeals to all of the senses, which I think increases the holiness and the seriousness of it.
Absolutely. And when you think about what makes something special, what makes something holy, when it does appeal to all the senses, when it does kind of get us on all levels, it really does. It almost like you can't miss, because when you combine sight and sound, and again, if you can add anything else, which we do know there is going to be incense, there is going to be
smell. Yes,
it is. It's a very powerful.
And there's texture,
spiritual.
so there's a feeling of touch to it too. There's everything involved.
Yep. And I think that's one of the things that we sometimes, and that's one of the things I love about the Havdalah service, is that we use all of our senses for it, and it's one of the most multi-sensory experiences. It's one of the most memorable types of things, because it does trigger our different senses, and we know that we have senses that are attached to taste and to sound and to smell, certain things that trigger our memories and our the psychological and kind of like really spiritual moments that those buttons get pressed by different senses. So it is important.
The appeal of the Catholic Church. That is one of the things the Catholic Church is very aware of.
Yeah.
Appealing to all of the senses. Yeah.
And I think that it is one of the things that we, when we stopped using incense at the temple, when the Beit HaMikdash got destroyed by the Romans, Jews stopped using some incense. They stopped using that because there was this idea that, well, we're going to make it wrong, so we better not make it at all, and don't try to make it. The Catholic Church didn't really care. So they continued to make the sacral vestments. They continue, which we didn't. We didn't tell rabbis to dress like priests. We didn't make incense, and because we told people you may make it wrong, and if you offer the wrong incense, you could get God mad. And so we kind of moved away from all these things that we thought would obviously we moved away from any type of visual images in our sanctuaries, because we didn't want to break the law of creating
Idols.
creating any type of idol, which is weird because what we've discovered was that in the ancient synagogues, they did have art. They have these beautiful mosaics that we don't know what they had on the walls because the walls are all destroyed, but the mosaics are still there. The ground tells the story that there probably was art everywhere in these ancient synagogues. But we stopped doing it. And then, of course, in the last generations, we've been a little bit more comfortable with it. But for a long time, synagogues were really places where people were afraid to make artistic statements. Pretty much the biggest statements they would make was in the construction of the building themselves. So when you go to the synagogue, like the Dohain synagogue in Budapest, it's the construction, it's the ornate architecture, and even inside, the woodwork and some of the features that are built into the architecture, to the wood or to the stone. But people were very careful not to have any representations or any artwork. And so, you could do stuff with geometric patterns and you could do stuff with architecture, but they didn't want to do it. And again, we know from the Mishkan and from the descriptions that we read last week that there were kruvim, there were definitely these angelic, depictions, and there were some things that we know from the ancient synagogues that we've uncovered that our ancestors had no issue with mosaics. They might have had issues with statuary. I mean, that's the one thing we don't know because stuff would all have been destroyed. But we do know that they had columns. We found the bases of columns. We've seen, we know the architecture was ornate, but we don't. And actually, we do have a synagogue in Sardis where we have very ancient synagogue in Sardis in Turkey, where we have lions that we've discovered that were made out of stone, that were definitely part of the artwork in the sanctuary. So it's difficult to know, but again, we kind of opted to almost go without any type of adornment, and we really relied on one thing in Judaism, which was music. We really relied on creating sacred liturgy and music and words that would elevate, but really we really relied on music more than anything else. We really took away all the other senses, including sight. We have sound still with the music and of course with the shofar, but it really is now difficult for us to recreate it because it's so far in our memories. So it says about these words, back to the forehead. It shall be on Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may take away any sin arising from the holy things that the Israelites consecrate. From any of their sacred donations, it shall be on his forehead at all times, to an acceptance for them before the Lord. So I'm assuming that what that is actually talking about is when they make offerings, having that on his forehead is going to help the Jews make expiation from all the things that they bring in, anything that they bring in for holiness, that these words will kind of get people in the right direction. Now, it says, you shall make the fringed tunic of fine linen. This is the undergarment. This is the white thing that goes underneath everything. This is kind of the undergarment, if you will. You shall make the headdress of fine linen, and you shall make the sash of embroidered work. And for Aaron's sons, you shall make tunics and make sashes for them, and make turbans for them for dignity and adornment. Again, those same words, lachavod utifaret.
Mm-hmm.
Put these on your brother Aaron and on his sons as well. Anoint them and adorn them, or ordain them, and consecrate them to serve me as priests. You shall make for them linen breeches to cover their nakedness. They shall extend from the hips to the thighs. And this is the interesting thing that it tells us, is that even the undergarments, so underneath the tunic, they're also wearing underwear. Now, you could say, why does the Torah talk about underwear for the priests? Why does it get into this? It's really, really interesting that even the undergarments are dealt with. And part of the issue here, and again, this is this michnasei vad, this is the breeches. But there's this idea that by covering covering, they're literally it says from the hips to the thighs. By wearing this kind of garment that's going to cover their entire, area of again, where it would be considered nakedness. I mean, front and back. What they're really doing is they're saying that they'll never be in a position where if the tunic blows up, if a gust of wind comes up, that anyone will be able to see them and they'll be in any situation humiliated. Now, again, you're going to say, well, the human body shouldn't be shamed by it, right?
But it takes away their sexuality.
But and what it does is it literally says to them, we're not going to let people look at somebody and laugh and say, we just saw the priest's butt. Because what's interesting is that even in the ancient world, people still had a sense of dignity or shame that came about with, again, walking around naked. And we see it from the very beginning. We see it from the first book of the Bible. We see it from the first chapter in Genesis, where Adam and Eve literally realized that being naked now is not the way that they don't want to be seen naked. So what's interesting is that it becomes now part of humanity that there is, if we're going to wear clothes, it all starts essentially around that. And we read about it last, right? We read about we start from the outside and then move to the inside, because we did the outside garments, we did the undergarment, and then the undergarment, and now we get to the undergarments. And so what this really does is it says that even at the lowest kind of like most usually unseen area, we're still going to tell people that when they're priests, when they're working as a priest, that this is the way they're going to be. Now, I will tell you that the implication of this, by the way, is that people didn't have to wear underwear other times. I will tell you that it is possible that is the case. It's also possible that this is special underwear. And by the way, we know that this is important to Mormons today because they have undergarments that they continue to wear, which are essentially a version of these undergarments that the priests wear. So there's a sense of holiness to these undergarments. People tease them and say it's magical, your magic underwear. But the reality is it's really keeping this tradition alive. And of course, what's interesting about this is that these are linen, which is even in the ancient world, was a very expensive and kind of like the highest level of garment that someone would wear, with the exception of a fur or a fine leather or something like that. But people aren't going to wear underwear made out of leather. Well, I should say they wouldn't normally wear underwear made of leather, but they do wear linen if they're, again, very wealthy, or if they're doing it for a very special reason. So there are people who've written about nothing other than the priest's underwear. And oftentimes people will write a sermon that says, why does God care about priest's underwear? Because it is in this week's portion. I mean, it is literally, you just read it.
Oh, no. Is he
Oh,
starting?
we lost you again. Uh-oh.
I think he's going to lose me tonight. Anyway, I had to get off early last time because the subject matter wasn't thrilling, and I read the whole thing already, so I think I'm going to go. It was nice seeing you.
Good to see you too,
Thank you,
Diane.
Bye.
Take care, Diane.
And we'll have to wear different hats all the time.
Different hands.
I'll go out and buy some.
Huh. Well, I'm wearing my epaulets.
Yes, I see. You look like an official pilot.
Well, I wanted the rabbi to know that he had an impact on our wardrobe.
Right.
And I'm curious about, are you thinking about attending the Zoom for Purim tomorrow?
No.
Okay. Cheryl's thinking about it. I'm not.
I won't be able to. I have a couple of things going on that I have to attend to. My statue that fell, I'm having somebody from the college come over to
Oh,
see
wow.
about building me a base. And I don't have an exact time, so I couldn't commit to anything else.
Yeah. Well, that's impressive that they're gonna come and take a look.
Yeah, it's one of the people that builds the sets and builds the bases for whatever statues they put on stage. And,
So
you
they-
know, they're used to, and they work in the art museum also as well. It's the perform,
Well,
it's a perform.
I apologize, everybody. Again, I don't know what to say. I'm very, very upset. This is not a Purim joke.
Well, you're
I-
back. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's not a Purim joke that I lost connection twice tonight. And that time there couldn't have been anything else I was doing because I restarted my computer and only went on Zoom. So the only thing I could think of was that Facebook was also open and I was making sure that we were still on Facebook. But
Well,
other than that, there's
you-
no.
You know, maybe you get to buy a new computer after all this. I mean, you have a good excuse.
I want to tell you something, Joyce. You're 100% right. Other than there's one problem. I bought a new computer right at the beginning of COVID. I actually did. The computer that I'm on. Yeah, and what I did is I bought a really, for me, a fairly high-end laptop because I wanted to have a computer with a good camera. And I got an Apple MacBook Pro with a really good camera, a very big screen.
Oh
Because
my.
I knew I was going to be using the camera, and you know, the bigger iMac, the desktops don't have necessarily a good camera built in, and so I got this computer with a good camera so that I could
Rabbi, suggestion,
do the classes. Yeah,
Office Max. They're really good about, if you bring it in and let them know what's going on, they'll look into it.
Or one of the geniuses from Apple, or
Well, wait.
somebody from Laptop EMT.
did you wait a second? Yeah, those are all good ideas. Let me just ask them though. Like, do they actually work on Macs at Office
I
Max?
do believe so.
You know, I'll talk because it's very strange. It only happens on Zoom. Like, I never have been kicked off of the internet. I've only been kicked off of Zoom. And I gotta think it's a RAM issue.
It
You
sure
really-
sounds like a RAM issue, but it shouldn't. I mean, you said you had 16 RAM.
Yeah. Do you think if I upgraded to 32 that I wouldn't happen anymore?
I don't think so. I think 16 should be fine. But I would check. If you have Apple support, give them a call.
You know, it's interesting you say it because I actually, that's another thing. I usually get like medium or even low range RAM. I don't usually get, you know, and that's one of the other things I did is I did a 16 RAM, which for me again is a big spend on. Yeah, it's 16.
But it should be covered by the geniuses at Apple because it's new.
It is. I purchased it on. I purchased it within the year because I definitely got it before. I got it after COVID.
That shouldn't really matter. Apple should be able to help you with that, or
Yeah, they should help you for
or
nothing.
contact Zoom, because it sure sounds like it's a Zoom issue, not a computer issue. Maybe. I would try Apple first.
I would too. I agree with you.
I
think it's.
I think it's still within their
Even if it's not, they should be able to help you
Right.
without charging you anything.
Well, you know, this is ridiculous because I don't think it's ever happened twice in a night, but it is. There's no reason. I mean, like I said, I restarted it and I you know, and clearly this last time I wasn't doing anything else. I wasn't running any other apps. But right now,
Now, if you go into, see, I don't know Mac well, but you should be able to see how much RAM, how much space you're using.
Yeah, there's a way. There's a way to do it. I can't remember. I can't remember how
Because
to do
on a PC, what we have a PC, you just, you go into taskbar and it'll tell you how you're doing, and with RAM and things like that, what's running.
it. It shows you how, yeah.
It just occurs to me, Mark, I have their Apple help number, 800-275-2273, and they can help you over the phone, hook into your own machine.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do it. But I may start with Zoom, because Zoom is really the only time that I have it. So I'm gonna talk to them. I'm gonna talk to them first, because maybe they can debug it, and maybe it's because maybe I have to do something to because it never happens with any other internet thing, any other web-based thing. I don't have a problem with it. I never had it. I'm going to talk to them first. But again, I apologize for that. This is where we're at now. Actually, we're kind of almost towards the end here. It says with the they shall be warned by Aaron and his sons when they enter the tent of meeting or approach the altar to officiate in the sanctuary, so they do not incur punishment and die. It shall be a law for all time for him and for his offspring to come. So again, the underwear is also an important part of what keeps him from dying. So it doesn't say that with the ephod. It doesn't say that with with the breastplate. It does say it with the underwear, that the underwear was important enough for them to die, as well as, interestingly, again, these bells that keep him alive too. So those things are really, really serious, because it doesn't say if he doesn't wear the ephod or if he doesn't wear the Hosha and Mishpat that he's going to die, but it does say those things. So here's
Hey, Mark, I don't want to interrupt you. When we're done here, I have a few some more information about Zoom and memory.
Oh, excellent.
So we'll talk about it
Please let me know.
later.
So this is what's due when you're to them in consecrating them to serve me as priests. Take a young bull of the herd and 2 rams without blemish, and unleavened bread, and unleavened cakes with oil mixed in, and unleavened wafers spread with oil. Make these of choice wheat flour. Place these in one basket and present them in the basket along with the bull and the 2 rams. Lead Aaron and his sons up to the entrance of the tent of meeting and wash them with water. And then take the vestments, clothe Aaron with the tunic and the robe of the ephod and the breastpiece, and gird him with the decorated band of the ephod. Put the headdress on his head and place the holy diadem upon the headdress, which is what they call that Nezar Kodesh. They call that the headpiece on him as well. Take the anointed oil and pour it on his head and anoint him. So they pour the oil on his head after he has everything on him. Then bring his sons forward, clothe them with tunics, and wind turbans upon them. So their turbans are wound on their heads. And gird both Aaron and his sons with sashes, so that they shall have the priesthood as the right for all time. You shall then ordain Aaron and his sons. So even though Aaron has a breastplate and has the ephod, the sons don't, but they have sashes over them. And so kind of the sashes kind of take the place of what they might have later on, which is, again, if they're the high priest, they're going to get, only one person gets to have the ephod and the breastpiece, but they do have these sashes over them. So on top of, and they do have a turban on top of them. So while they don't have the crown, if you will, of the priesthood, which is a separate crown, and they don't have the other items on top of them, the ephod and the breastpiece, they do have these garments that go on top of whatever garments, again, their tunic. So they do have like an outer dressing, but it's nothing compared to what the high priest has. It says, lead the bull up to the front of the tent of meeting and let Aaron and his sons lay their hands upon the head of the bull. Slaughter the bull before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and take some of the bull's blood and put it on the horns of the altar with your finger. Then pour out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. So the blood goes on the corners and also on the base. Take all the fat that covers the entrails, the protuberance on the liver, and the 2 kidneys with the fat on them, and turn them into smoke upon the altar. So you burn that first, this fat, if you will. These things that have normally a lot of fat on them. It's kind of like kindling. And it says, though, then take the rest of the flesh of the bull, its hide, and its dung. It shall be put to the fire outside the camp. It is a sin offering. So even though it's not burnt on the altar, this part of it that is not the big part is burned separately. But there's more going on the altar. So part of the bull goes on the altar, and then part of it gets burnt outside. And now you have the ram. Next, take the one ram and let Aaron and his sons lay their hands upon the ram's head. Slaughter the ram and take its blood and dash it on the sides of the altar. Cut up the ram into sections, wash its entrails and legs, and put them with its quarters and its head. Turn all of the ram into smoke upon the altar. It is a burnt offering to the Lord, a pleasing odor, an offering by fire to the Lord. So part of the bull is burnt on the altar, and then all of the ram is burnt on the altar. Then take the other ram and let Aaron and his sons lay their hands upon the ram's head. Slaughter the ram and take some of its blood and put it on the ridge of Aaron's right ear, and on the ridges of his sons' right ears, and on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the big toes of their right feet, and dash the rest of the blood against every side of the altar round about. Take some of the blood that is on the altar and some of the anointing oil, and sprinkle upon Aaron and his vestments, and also upon his sons and his sons' vestments. Thus he and his vestments be holy, as well as his sons' vestments. Now, let's just reflect on that.
How often would they do this?
So that's the question, right? So at least the way it's described here is this is the way that you anoint and kick off the whole thing. So it's done once. Done once, assumedly.
All right.
Except what we read later on in Leviticus is after they've done this the first time, they have a screw up, which is that Aaron's 2 sons, Nadav and Avihu, screw everything up. And they have to redo it. And when they redo it, the description is a little different, not exactly the same in Leviticus, but we read about it in Achrei Mot. So we read about them dying in Shemini, Parshat Shemini, the third portion in Leviticus, and then a few portions later, 3 portions later, we read about Achrei Mot. We read about what happens after they die, and that they're cleansed the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and then rededicate it 8 days later, right? Literally, they have to redo it. That tradition of rededicating it becomes a yearly event. And that yearly event, folks, is Yom Kippur.
Oh.
So this essentially was redone, or some of it was redone very similar every year on Yom Kippur. So there's an assumption maybe initially that this is a one-time deal, or maybe it's going to be done every time there's a new high priest. But that's not what happens. In Leviticus, we read it's done every year. The cleansing and the rededication of the Mishkan is done every year. And it's done, of course, when the temple is built, it's done every year. But again, what's so amazing about this, the point I wanted to make, was these beautiful garments, these beautiful precious stones and ornate embroidery have blood spilled on them. and oil spilled on them. And you'd be going, oh my gosh, these beautiful things, we're now covering them in blood and oil. That's not, I don't want to see that. Wow. It's literally like saying everything that you think is beautiful, now we're going to tell you it's going to get dirty. And you're going to get to work. Because think about it. The priestly work was dirty work. Every day they're sacrificing animals. Every day the high priest is going out there into essentially a butcher shop and slaughtering animals every day and burning stuff up every day. It's dirty work. So as much as this stuff is like you're thinking, oh yeah, it's supposed to be beautiful. It says so. It's supposed to be conveying holiness and dignity. It also has to be functional. It also has to be able to allow the priest to do the dirty work of what he's doing. And that's a really wild idea. That's one that, again, we sometimes forget. Because people talk about and they see pictures of the beautiful stuff, but they forget this stuff's going to get dirty. And it gets dirty right away. It gets dirty by command. Yeah. The vestments are only holy after take some of the blood from the altar and some of the anointing oil and sprinkle it upon Aaron and his vestments and upon his sons and his sons' vestments. Thus shall he and his vestments be holy, as well as his sons and his sons' vestments. That's what makes them holy too. Not just that they're beautiful, not just that they're precious and very expensive, but that they're also covered in these ritual elements that they're going to be in every day. The oil, the smoke, the blood, every day. You shall take from the ram the fat parts, the broad tail, the fat that covers the entrails, the protuberance of the liver, and the 2 kidneys with the fat on them, the right thigh. This is the ram of ordination. Add 1 flat loaf of bread and 1 cake of oil bread and 1 wafer from the basket of unleavened bread that is before the Lord. Place all of these on the palms of Aaron's and his sons and offer them as an elevation offering before the Lord. Take them from their hands and turn them into smoke upon the altar with the burnt offering as a pleasing odor before the Lord. It is an offering by fire to the Lord. Then take the breast of Aaron's ram of ordination and offer it as an elevation offering before the Lord. It shall be your portion. You shall consecrate the breast that was offered as an elevation offering, and the thigh that was offered as a gift offering from the ram of ordination, from that which was on Aaron's, and with that which was on his, from that which was his sons. And those parts shall be due for all time from the Israelites to Aaron and his descendants, for their gift. So they will be a gift for the Israelites, their gift to the Lord out of their sacrifices of well-being. This is the offering, again, that seems to be a constant. Again, how oftentimes was the ordination offering done? Maybe again, whenever there's a new priest. Maybe again, as we read later on, every year on Yom Kippur. But this idea that the priests have an offering that's set aside for them is part of the very beginning of their job. And again, in addition to what they have to wear. Sacral vestments of Aaron shall pass on to his sons after them, for them to be anointed and ordained in. He among his sons who becomes priest in his stead, who enters the tent of meeting to officiate within the sanctuary, shall wear them 7 days. And you shall take the ram of ordination and boil its flesh in the sacred precinct. And Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the bread that is in the basket at the entrance of the tent of meeting. These things shall be eaten only by those for whom expiation was made with them when they were ordained and consecrated. They may not be eaten by a layman, for they are holy. So again, this is clearly just for the priests. And if any of the flesh of ordination or any of the bread is left until morning, you shall put what is left into the fire. It is not to be eaten, for it is holy. So anything that's leftovers, there's no doggy bag. Anything that's left over is burnt. And this is exactly what happens with the Passover offering that we already read about. So we actually already read about an offering that isn't left over until morning. So it's not treated like a meal. This is a holy sacrifice. And it's something that you can't treat ever like just an ordinary meal. And it says, thus shall you do to Aaron and his sons, just as I've commanded you. You shall ordain them through 7 days. And again, this is why when we read the portion Shmini, it happens on the 8th day. It happens after the dedication week. Because again, what we have in Exodus and Leviticus is this idea that the dedication, the ordination of a priest is a 7-day affair. And each day you shall prepare a bull as a sin offering for expiation. You shall purge the altar by performing purification upon it, and you shall anoint it to consecrate it. And again, it's done to some extent. That ordination thing is done for 7 days. This blood offering, blood being spilled, each day you shall prepare it. It says, purge the altar by performing purification upon it. You shall anoint it to consecrate it. 7 days you shall perform purification for the altar to consecrate it, and the altar shall become most holy. Whatever touches the altar shall become consecrated. Kodesh, and that's the word, consecrated. You shall make it holy. And this is what you shall offer upon the altar. So now we get to, after you've done consecrating it, after you've essentially dedicated it, this is what happens every day. And so even though we're not in Leviticus, we get the laws of what the priests are supposed to do on a daily basis. Every day, you offer 2 yearling lambs regularly, every day. You shall offer the lamb in the morning, and you shall offer the other lamb at twilight. There shall be 1/10 of a measure of choice flour with 1/4 hin of beaten oil mixed in, and a libation of 1/4 hin of wine for 1 lamb. So each lamb also is accompanied by oil and by flour and by wine. And you shall offer the other lamb at twilight, repeating with it the meal offering of the morning with its libation, an offering by fire for a pleasing odor to the Lord. A regular burnt offering, an olat tamid, which again, regular or constant or eternal, burnt offering throughout the generations of the tent of meeting before the Lord. For there I will meet you, and there I will speak with you. So again, this idea that the daily offering is a simple, again, it's a lamb. It's not a bull every day, every night. But this is the daily offering, not a sin offering. It's not a goodwill offering. It's not a offering of well-being. It's just the daily offering. It's the constant offering that's being offered every day. Again, on holidays, on Shabbos, we add other offerings. Those become extra offerings. But on every day there's an offering. And for there I will meet with you, and there I will speak with you. And there I will meet the Israelites, and it shall be sanctified by my presence. I will sanctify the tent of meeting and the altar, and I will consecrate Aaron and his sons to serve me as priests. I will abide among the Israelites, and I will be their God. And again, this is this idea that I will be with them. I will be amongst them. V'shachanti betoch b'nei Israel. I will be amongst them. And they shall know that I, the Lord, am their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, that I might abide again within them, amongst them. I, the Lord, am their God. So let's read what the last section of this is about, the incense. And as I promised you, this is a multi-sensory experience. And this is the part of the Torah that again gets us into the kind of how people were supposed to connect with this, as I said, all the senses, but this incense and this altar again was something that when people would see it, when they would smell it, this was one of the things that kind of made them realize that they're in the presence of God. So we'll finish with this. This is the last part of the Torah portion. You shall make an altar for burning incense. Make it of acacia wood. It shall be a cubit long and a cubit wide. It shall be square and 2 cubits high. Its horn of one piece with it. So again, just like the altar for the meat offerings where the animals were put, the altering for incense also has horns on top. The karnot. It's the word right there, the horns. Overlay it with pure gold, its top, its sides round about, and its horns, and make a gold molding for it round about. And make 2 gold rings for it under its molding, and make them on its 2 side walls on opposite sides. They shall serve as holders for poles with which to carry it. So again, like the ark, like the other altar, it can be carried. It can be moved from place to place. It's going to have to be. Make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Place it in front of the curtain that is over the ark of the pact, in front of the cover that is over the pact, where I will meet with you. So again, this is by the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of the Pact as they translate it. But again, this is the area right by the Ark of the Covenant. On it, Aaron shall burn aromatic incense. He shall burn it every morning when he tends the lamps. And Aaron shall burn it at twilight when he lights the lamps, a regular incense offering before the Lord throughout the ages. You shall not offer alien incense on it, or a burnt offering or a meal offering, neither shall you pour a libation on it. So don't offer any of wrong kind of incense, and also don't put any burnt offerings or meal offerings on it, okay? Or any kind of libation, any kind of wine or oil on it. You're not supposed to put anything on it other than incense. And even the incense, you're only supposed to put a certain kind of incense. Once a year, Aaron shall perform purification upon its horns with blood, with the sin of offering of purification. Purification shall be formed upon it once a year. Throughout the ages, it shall be most holy to the Lord. So, why do we not make other incense? Why do we not try to make incense? Because of this rule. You shall not offer alien incense on it. Now, again, you can make the argument, well, we don't have an altar anyways, so what difference does it make? But, the rabbis inferred from this that we don't want to make alien incense. We don't want to mess up and use the wrong kind of incense. So we stopped doing incense altogether. So it's an interesting kind of approach, which is, in order not to make a mistake, we don't do it at all. One can make the argument that, not necessarily the best way to live, so that, you wind up doing nothing because you wind up not wanting to ever do it wrong. But certain things seem pretty specific. And this is one of them, which says no alien incense. It doesn't say you'll die if you do, but we do have this story of Nadav and Avihu who offer the wrong kind of incense and get burned up. And so, while it may be that they did something more than just offer up an alien incense or alien fire, this is what it actually says, an alien fire, that it might have been something even worse that they did, or they were in the wrong presence of mind when they did it. People were scared. People were scared about making the wrong kind of incense. And so we stopped doing it altogether. So while it doesn't say you die here, and it did say you die if you do the wrong kinds of stuff with other things, so it's not like you could have said it. There is the story of Nadav and Avihu, which kind of is a cautionary tale. So this is the end of Truman Tetzaveh. As I mentioned last week, these portions, the two portions, last week's and this week's, we often read together. It's really important. And let me just make sure, see if there's any people that are, I don't want to knock us off. I will look at these things that you sent me, by the way, too, Mike. I see you just sent me some articles on Zoom.
But it definitely is a Zoom issue. It's a Zoom issue versus your computer.
So you did read enough on it?
I read a little bit, because I'm listening to you, but it really has to do with, because remember, when you're on a Zoom meeting, you're using both upload and download speeds.
Oh.
Because of, because we're listening to you, you're listening to us.
Yep.
Plus, the more people you have on will slow things down.
It's interesting. The one thing
it shouldn't slow you down much, but it will slow down. But tonight there's only 6 or 7 of us, so it really
I know.
was.
Well, the other thing is I right when it crashed, I was going over to Facebook to make sure we were still on Facebook.
See, that might be doing it. It might be Facebook that's really doing it, Rabbi. Because Zoom really is a magnet for space and memory.
So what I'm going to try next time, so everybody knows, I'm going to talk to Zoom. I am going to follow this and see if there's
I would
figure out. But the other thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to shut off Safari, any other things around.
Yeah,
Safari.
they recommend, obviously, shut down everything other than what you need.
And what I'm going to do is I will check Facebook, but I'll do it on my tab, on my iPad. I'm going to check to make sure we're on there because, believe it or not, we've already had 43 people that have jumped on Facebook. So I do know.
Well, I was on there twice.
Yeah, you count twice. Well, we had 14 engagements. So what we got to do is make sure that we have Facebook working. So I will check it, but I'll check it off of the.
But you should check with Zoom to see how much space even using Facebook is doing, because that could be the issue.
No, I know, but as long as I don't do it on my computer, if I do it on the tablet, it shouldn't be a problem because I am spending a small fortune on getting that 400. It's not a small fortune. It's more than I'd like to. I'm spending for the 400 megabyte package with Spectrum. That's another thing that I upgraded while we were in COVID is doing that. But I will tell you, again, I'll thank you, Mike, for sending that to me. I will tell you that I'm going to I'm going to get back to work on Purim. It is live. Some of it's taped, but some of it's live. And I want everybody, if you can, to join us tomorrow at 7 or come on later, because we did put a lot of time into Purim. I will tell you, a safe estimate is it was 10 times more work, maybe more, maybe 15 times more work to do it. We usually do 2 rehearsals for Purim stuff, but this time I can't even tell you how much time there was. So I really appreciate everybody who sang, who did some pieces. You can see a couple of the people if you look on Facebook, the little trailer I put up, little teaser I put up has 3 people in it. And I'll tell you, one of them you'll recognize, Mark Kaplan, but also, of course, Wendy and you'll see Juliet Hershenson up there too. So again, I hope everybody can join us for that. We had a lot of fun at we did the escape room Saturday night, and people had a good time. It was good use of our minds, and it was all word games and logic puzzles and things like that. And people had a good time. We'll probably try it again because we had we had 8 teams, and there's probably about 100 people that participated, and it was good. It was good fun. We didn't get to talk that much with each other. We had to kind of like each be in our own group, but it was a lot of fun. So it was definitely some Purim time fun. So please try to join us tomorrow night. Have some fun for Purim. I think it was one of the few holidays or days period all year that Jews were supposed to have a good time, that we're supposed to let loose, that we were supposed to kind of go crazy. And, you know, a lot of the rabbis who were very serious, some of them were really serious people, they did have, they did consider it a mitzvah to get a little crazy on Purim. So I don't know, you know, you can make the argument, nobody has to drive this Purim. So, you know, I don't want to encourage anybody to be dangerous, but this year, you're even less likely to get, you know, to be dangerous because
So you recommend all of us to get drunk on tomorrow night?
I didn't say that. Very careful. And I don't want anybody to accuse me of really, that's really,
Say that.
it's
Well,
really,
well, Rabbi, you know, I've been to
really
Purim.
dangerous to say
I've
that.
been to your Purim, you know, many times, and I've never seen you without a bottle.
I will be with a bottle. Sometimes the bottles are more for props, more for show. But I will.
I don't know about that. I've seen that go down your throat.
I will tell you that there's one alcohol that I used to drink that I don't drink anymore because of one really bad Purim. But it's not an alcohol that anybody really should drink unless you're a
Slivovitz?
college student. Oh no, Slivovitz I still drink. That you'll never get. That is that's my birthright. No, no, actually it's an alcohol that I never, you know, I can't, like, I almost feel embarrassed to say that I was drinking that night because it's some kind considered not the most masculine drink, I guess. I'm also not being politically correct saying that. It was Fireball, and Fireball is a very sweet whiskey, cinnamon flavored whiskey, and it's really sweet. And so some people say it's not a real tough person's drink. Let's put it that way. But Fireball, I can't drink it anymore because I did have a little too much of it a few Purims ago, and even the smell of it is doesn't make me feel good. So that is
It's like me and bananas, Rabbi. I was in Hawaii many years ago, and I had 10 banana daiquiris. I haven't had a banana since.
It's kind of like that. You're right. I kind of went off the cinnamon flavoring altogether. It's like, you know, because it tastes like those hot tamales, right? It's like it's whiskey with hot tamale flavoring to it. And it's not a drink that it's become popular in colleges and stuff like that in the last probably 15, 20 years. But yeah, I used to like it. Not anymore. I'll tell you what it's really good with, by the way. And again, I'm saying this because it's Purim, but it's really good if you take some Fireball and you mix it with an apple cider, an apple like an angry, they call it angry fire, but it's like angry balls or something like that. You take the apple cider and you mix it with the Fireball. It tastes like apple pie, cinnamon apple pie.
And then you dunk your Hamantash in it. Then it's great.
It's really good. So I am probably way too politically incorrect tonight, but I will tell you that Purim is meant
I'll never tell.
Purim's, I know you
Me
will.
neither.
I know you
Oh,
will.
I will.
Purim is meant to be a time of going nuts. So go a little crazy. You're following in your tradition if you're doing it. So who knew last year at Purim it would be one of the last times we could do that in public. But honestly, this is the last time we had a party.
It was fun last year, though.
It was. So anyways, we hope you'll be there, and it is going to be, like I said, we will be live tomorrow at 7:00, and we're going to do our best. And I hope that I hope my Zoom doesn't go out tomorrow. And this is why I get so scared. I just jinxed it by saying it. All right, everybody. All right, everybody.
Well, right before at 6:30, restart your computer.
I will, but I have to play videos too. I don't want to think about it. All right, I'm going to read your stuff. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for sending.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Everybody,
everybody.
take care. Good to see
Love
you.
you,
Love you,
Joyce.
Joy.
Bye bye.
Love you. Miss you.